Namaste, everyone. Michelle Granberg here. Welcome to another episode of Positive Energy, promoting a world of empathy and compassion for all animals and humans. What does it mean to rescue? Rescue means saving someone from danger or distress. On this show, we're talking about rescuing domesticated small animals, specifically ferrets. Stay with us to meet two rescued individuals, hear their stories, learn how you can help, and more. Positive Energy starts right now. So I'm here with Kelly and friends from Ferrets and Friends. Welcome, Kelly. Thanks for being on Positive Energy.
Thank you for having me.
So I know the goal of Ferrets and Friends is to make the world a better place for pets and pet parents by providing easily accessible education and support so pet parents can provide reliable long-term pet care. So tell me a little bit about when you got started, what your mission is, and why you decided to rescue.
So I didn't specifically get into ferrets on purpose. I had always grown up with pets. I've loved animals, and I moved out on my own around my college area, and I saw a local shelter who had a ferret, Panda, and I kind of was like, let's try it out. I quickly realized, though, that there was a lack of information, or at least proper information, and I was messing up her care so badly. So I really dug hard, and thankfully I was able to find proper information, like .org websites, and I learned there that they're very social. So that's when I began looking for a pet. And unfortunately, that led me to the depths of Craigslist, where I realized because a lot of people did not know the care that ferrets involve, that they unfortunately were neglecting, if not abusing them, and then posting them on Craigslist because they were not equipped to handle them, whether financially or physically, to meet their needs. Because while animals are great, ferrets are great, not every household is equipped for a ferret, right. And not every person is maybe best met with a ferret to have as a pet. So I kind of realized that, especially with exotics, I feel like there's not as much correct information because people grow up around dogs and cats, and I feel like whether you directly or indirectly, see them, you can kind of guess their care. It's a lot more known, whereas exotic pet stores are not reliable.
Do your homework.
Well, pet stores can sometimes just want to sell things, and the breeders they come from, they push their brands, which are not necessarily what you should be feeding. And there's just a lot of confusion and misinformation regarding their care.
I'm just so glad that you stepped in then, and that your mission is that dual mission to both educate and rescue, because you want to set people up for success, because the animals are the victims otherwise. They're the ones who have the most to lose in that way. And we just want to drive the message home for people. It's a big responsibility, no matter what species you're bringing into your home and you're making that commitment. It's a big responsibility that goes along with that. So you did bring with you some of your lovely ferret friends today that you've rescued and you provide sanctuary for. So introduce us to your first furry friend. Who is this? So
this is Fuzz.
Hi, Fuzz.
He has been with me probably only about 6 months now. Unfortunately, a similar situation like I mentioned before, where someone realized that ferrets were just not something that they could care for, had found me through a family member, and I was able to get him and his sister. Unfortunately, his sister did pass.
Sorry.
She had something that was not treatable, but he's still here, and he's quite young. As you can see, they're silly little bendy noodles.
They really are. So tell me a bit about his sort of personality and what's he like on a day-to-day basis.
I like to call some of them wackadoodle noodles, just because he is like crazy sometimes, and they're very playful. Ferrets are known to sleep a lot throughout the day, so when they are awake, especially the younger ones, will get into whatever they can. So I have a ball pit, I have like crinkle tunnels, and he is probably far the most playful, maybe matched only by Elliot. But when I first got him, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a wild one. And he has since calmed down. I think he just needed to meet everyone and integrate, but he's definitely one of my youngest.
How old is he, do you think?
Estimated to be probably about 2.
How do you tell? Just
Usually when I bring them to the vets after I first get them, they can kind of guess by their teeth, but it's only a guesstimate. So depending on what the owner, if they have proper information.
So their
and
teeth
stuff,
get bigger as they get older, or they lose
they
their
change a
teeth?
different color.
They change to a different color.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So
that's
sometimes,
interesting.
based on if they're white or yellow, you can kind of guess. It's not a definite, to be honest, especially if they were neglected, they have issues with their teeth. So it's not a permanent thing.
So they like enrichment and they like to play with each other.
They do. So I've rarely met a ferret who does not like other ferrets. They really are very social.
I love that. Not all animals are like that.
No, yeah. Obviously there's a integration process. You can't just throw them in and there's quarantine for safety, but they definitely do enjoy. Most of them bond very quickly. So yeah, I have a group.
So who would you say ferrets are, as a companion animal, are most recommended for and least or not recommended? Like, would you say a house of kids, good or not so good?
I would say slightly older kids, because they can be, stepped on, they're small, they run, if you're, it's just a little dangerous until your kid can listen and maybe figure out, there have been cases of kids squeezing too hard or dropping. So just probably older kids, but definitely kids, because they're a huge laugh. When I try to clean and I put my wipes and paper towels down, they'll stash them. They do something called stashing. So they'll drag it under the cage and hide it. And for a second I'll be like, did I bring them out? And no, it's that they hide them and they think it's the funniest thing. When I'm vacuuming, they try to chase the vacuum and they're a laugh.
So if you want a companion that makes you giggle and laugh and brings joy to your life, sounds like they're just really great to have around.
They're very funny, but you do have to know ferrets can be stubborn. They're very hard to litter train. They're prone to cancers. Exotic vets are going to be more expensive than regular vets, so it's also good to make sure that you have a trustworthy exotic vet in your area before you commit, that you can afford. Just for me to vet non-abused animals, just an initial vetting, is usually $200 to $300, just when I first take them in.
Where can people find an exotic vet? Because obviously exotic vets are within regular vet practices,
sometimes,
but there isn't always an exotic vet in every vet practice.
And so sometimes you have to call. I do try to keep a directory up to date on my website. Honestly, I have to tell you, it's not going to always be up to date. It's very hard. Things are changing, but I do try to keep information, because like I said, part of my mission is not just to take in all the ferrets, but to keep ferrets in home, to help to help make sure that if people are going to get them, they're properly informed before. So those are all important things.
Fantastic.
Can I put you away for a second and we'll get...
Yeah, we're going to stop just for a second so you can put him away for the moment. So let's meet another of your furry friend that you brought with you today. I'm so excited to meet.
Oh, sorry, buddy. This is Fang, and he has a very similar coat to Fuzz, but he is a little bit older. He came to me with his sister Ash. Actually, I drove to King of Prussia on New Year's Eve a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, his sister spent 4 days in the hospital and did pass from a cancer as well, but he is with us. So I do just want to reiterate, ferrets are very prone to health issues. So that is something to consider, because they have shorter lifespans. Maybe you could go 10 years before a dog has some issues of old age, but ferrets are prone. Things like adrenal disease, because they're spayed and neutered at just a couple weeks old from the breeding farm that they come from. They are prone to things like insulinoma, adrenal disease, many cancers.
Would you say the main causes is the breeding, the conditions of breeding, or the abnormalcy of breeding? Is it in their DNA, or is
definitely
it more
somewhat,
environmental?
because in the UK, a lot of the ferrets are working animals, so they don't come from a breeding factory, and they have a much longer lifespan. They actually use an implant that stops pregnancy to use them instead of neutering and spaying them, so they can live a lot longer. So it definitely is their lack of growth hormones, and insulinoma can be from bad diet. They just seem to be prone to things because the company who breeds them, I do want to point out, is most popularly in this area is going to be Marshalls. Now, they started breeding because they were a laboratory who bred them for testing purposes and then decided, hey, we can sell them. but they do 1,000% still test on animals. For example, the COVID vaccine, I believe that they were involved in Ebola testing. They are still used by Marshall's laboratories as animals to be tested on.
Yeah, that's something we don't like to hear. We don't want to see that. We don't know about in terms of the ways that they're exploited. And we often hear about mice and rats being exploited for testing, but this is the first time I'm understanding what you're saying, that also ferrets, why ferrets? And
unfortunately, they have very similar makeup as far as getting these diseases as humans. So, they've led to great change, but it's very sad because we all know lab conditions are not the best, and animal testing is I hope one day we can move past from that. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, you can almost only find bred ferrets from these companies. You can't usually find people who bred their own ferrets because Marshall's keeps them spayed and neutered specifically, I guess, so that maybe they could be the only ones producing them. So I will
poor little guys.
Show you how you know that it's Marshall's is they have tattoos on the ears. My hair is stuck in you. They have tattoos on the ears. Those little dots that have worn off right there, they tattoo their ears, so you know that they're from Marshall's when their ears are tattooed.
Ah. So what is sort of a typical call that you get, when people reach out with situations where they're looking to you to rescue and give sanctuary? They probably don't have a typical call, right? But
yeah, I mean, it varies, but I have to say the biggest call is probably just, I got a ferret for my kids, either I didn't realize how time consuming they were, my kids don't want them, or, there's a suspected health issue and they can't get to the vet. Those are the common, but, like I said, how I started was I realized, don't get me wrong, I don't want to take away dogs and cats, they're abused a lot as well. But I think it's what we focus on, like you see the commercials for the ASPCA and that's what they show you. I don't think people realize that, whether purposeful or not, denying them their basic needs, even if you just simply don't know about it, is neglect. And ferrets are probably, in most situations that I've seen, again, not necessarily purposeful, 99% of cases I've seen, they were neglected, either locked in a cage all day, which is not appropriate, not given the right cage, food that's toxic, just simple things like that, denied vet care, and so sometimes I actually search out with Elliot. I had actually found him accidentally on Craigslist, and the owner was not willing to let him go to a sanctuary despite knowing that he was not able to provide the care he needed. So unfortunately I did have to pay a ransom fee to get him. But I do not regret it. So
yes.
Would you like to hold Fang?
Oh, well, maybe in a bit.
Okay.
I would love to, actually, for hours
He's
and hours.
being calm,
He's
so
being very calm.
So I figured it would maybe be a good time.
He's so relaxed in
I
your
know,
arms.
he's usually, like I said.
It looks like he's almost going to fall asleep. His little eyes are like... I love it. So, I mean, what are some misconceptions about ferrets?
A common one that I probably get the most is that they smell. Well, every animal. I was
going to mention.
Well,
I know.
Every animal, if you sniff them, like even my dog, like she smells like wet dog when it rains. Like it's a thing. But the thing is ferrets only smell bad if you're giving them a bad diet, not properly cleaning the room, and sometimes if you bathe them too much, because they have very essential oils on their skin, and when you bathe them, you're stripping away. It's like if you wash your face 20 times a day, you're gonna get very oily, and so they actually overcompensate, and that's the smell. The oils are the smell.
Right.
So if they, a lot of people are like, they smell, let me bathe them. No, clean more, give them better food, and bathe them less, and you'll usually I don't know, they smell like corn chips to me, like a tortilla chip.
And so they're part of the mustelid family, where otters and badgers and weasels are also part of those families. And are they indigenous or wild anywhere in this country? Like, where did they originate? Do you know? I
think I'm pretty sure you will not find them. They may be endangered. In North America, there's the black-footed ferret. It's not very common to find them in certain parts, and I'm pretty sure that they're not common anymore. I'm not sure where they originated from. I'm not sure how you guys got here. I'm glad you did, but
And they're pure carnivores, is that correct?
Yes,
so
they're obligate
they don't
carnivores.
eat any veggies or fruits at all?
No.
Can they, or they just don't like them?
I'm not a vet, so I'm just repeating what, I've read. But basically, the reason why they can't eat plant matter is because you have a cecum that breaks down plant matter in animals.
Oh.
A lion has a larger cecum than ferrets don't have one at all. So the most plant matter they'd get would be if in the wild they ate like a whole prey. You'd eat what they were, like not what they haven't digested. So let's say a rabbit, like if a rabbit ate things, whatever they didn't digest, so very minimally. So that's how you know to look for a good food is the least amount of fruits and vegetables, preferably none.
We want to feed you like you would eat in the wild. We owe you that for sure.
Yes.
And so how about sleeping and sheltering? I bet they like to sleep in little packs together on top of each other.
They're burrowing animals, so not only do they love a good blanket for it, but they cuddle puddle. I rarely see them sleep alone. Every once in a while, they go off and they're having their little me time, but for the most part, where you find one, you will find the rest. That's funny. Whenever I bring, the best diet is a high quality kibble or freeze-dried raw or raw. And I do a kibble mixed with freeze-dried raw. I do freeze-dried raw twice a day. And so I bring it in a soup form and they come running and you just see like 5 run out of like one little spot. And Panda, my first ferret, the smallest, she is always on the bottom. I don't know how I think I sent you some pictures. I don't know how she handles it because
maybe she likes it.
My mom says it must keep her warm because she's under a pound. She's one of the smallest ferrets I've ever had. This guy is almost 3 pounds. So the fact that you have 10 pounds on top of you is...
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest blessings or the upside of having a ferret live with you is this.
Yes.
That they cuddle, they bond with each other, they're fun. And the downside, not really a downside, but the thing to be really aware of is the health issues.
Or just how hard it is. So,
yes.
I mean, I even struggle with exotic vets. I used to go to a 24-hour one, but they kind of stopped staffing the exotics at night. So, I mean, it's not even if you just find an exotic. Like, you want to make sure if you have to drive 3 hours and there's an emergency, a lot can happen. So it's just good to plan things like that because with a dog, you can probably find 100 vets in the state, maybe way more, I don't know. But with exotics who specifically are knowledgeable about ferrets, that's kind of hard.
Yeah. Yeah, so people need to know that if that's the first thing you want to find is your nearest exotic vet for emergencies and for
make sure that you can travel there. And then the next thing I'd probably work on is the setup. I have information on my website about great cages. The kind of cost to start up, and I think that's an important thing to look into, making sure you have the space. If you work 20 hours a day. That's obviously dramatic, but you're not going to have time for a ferret. They do either need partners to have fun with or human touch. That's actually why I decided to be a sanctuary and not adopt out, because they bond so quickly with each other. I just felt bad to separate them. And sometimes it has been proven that if one passes, if they've been bonded for so long, they can pass or go down.
Yeah,
their health can go down.
They can't handle it. They're like us.
Yeah.
None of us are an island. I don't want to be isolated. I don't want to live alone. I want to live with people. I want to live with my people. Absolutely.
While it's
Fang,
not
you're so adorable.
While it's not 100%, I personally have never met another ferret who, with time, patience, and love, did not love the other ferrets or humans. So, I'm not speaking. There are still, human aggressive animals. There are still ferrets who don't like other ferrets, but it's not very common. So most of them do love
sweet
companionship.
And docile, and that's why animals who are so sweet and docile tend to get exploited the most in our stinky world of human beings. But I'm glad you're here and you're a really good resource that people can reach out to and you can direct them. So let's bring out your next little furry friend, Elliot, and hear his story. Bye for now, Fang.
So this is Elliot, who I mentioned earlier. where I had to drive to Reading, PA to get him.
And he's your most recent rescue?
Yes, literally like 10 days ago, I think. I did have to pay a ransom to get him. He was kept in
I love how you call it a ransom.
Well,
That's
it's honestly what it is, because the guy admitted that he couldn't care for him and wouldn't do, it's okay if you can't care for animals. People do make mistakes.
Do they make a sound? I guess only when they make a little peeping sound.
Yeah, the most common is called duking, and it's kind of like a weird maniacal laughter when they're running around, because they like war dance and they run and they think it's funny. So they get worked up, and sometimes they play a little rough, and I do break it up, but I've never had an issue.
Yeah. I just wish that people would see them as we see them, as sentient beings, as individuals, and not try to make money from them. It's just something so not okay about that. But let's talk a little bit more about your rescue in terms of, you work with humans as well. How's your capacity? I know you're doing this out of your home.
Yes.
I hope that's okay to say.
I am. I only have 5 ferrets right now. I do take in senior dogs as well. And I randomly have 2 leopard geckos that someone didn't want. Nice. The most I've had ferrets at one time, I believe, is around 10. So they have their own 250 square foot area. I actually build it a little separate from my house. It has to be heated and cooled. Ferrets are specifically sensitive to heat. So in the summer, you have to have decent air conditioning. So it's like ferret-proofed. Ferret-proofed is a very serious thing to say, because ferrets are so small, and you see that they're very interested in exploring their surroundings.
Oh my gosh.
They will find any hole, anything. I mean, there have been reports of them getting in like dryer tubes and getting stuck, in your apartments and stuff.
That's a nightmare.
So I guess that's also something I'd recommend. Being very careful if you're going to keep them in an area. I think it's important to do your due diligence.
Ferret-proof, absolutely. So how can people support you? You have a shop where I'm sure the proceeds come back to caring for the ferrets, and would you like to ask for donations? Feel free. In terms of rescuing and fostering and adopting. You're not adopting out, I know that, but
I do run an Etsy shop, which is mostly animal and vegan themed, and those proceeds do help me rescue other animals. And I do have fundraisers throughout the year. I'm doing a t-shirt fundraiser right now with some of the ferrets photos. Elliot will be joining soon. And then of course I do Facebook fundraisers and do accept donations. We have an Amazon wish list that always helps the amount of.
So you mentioned you're a vegan, obviously so am I, and can you connect the dots just sort of quickly between veganism and animal rescue?
Well, I was vegetarian most of my life, and unfortunately, like a lot of people, I did not realize the problems in the dairy industry. So that didn't hit me until I was older. And it's amazing to see how far we've come, though, with spreading that information. Because when I was younger, there wasn't like veggie burgers and things. I would get like a side of French fries. But I think, especially learning about veganism and making the switch to dairy, it kind of clicked in my head that we have these preconceived ideas, and I'm not sure how we came up with which animals deserved what, but we had these
random
things, because in different countries it's different things, and I don't understand, like, if in one country they think cows are so special, why I'm just confused about the disconnect about why here they're not.
And then you connect the dots to all animals once you start to really do that.
And you realize what a sad world it is, because I mean, lots of problems happen to humans. We all are doing awful things to each other, but I think the one biggest thing is that humans can speak out. They can tell you their needs. We have communication. We have different things we can do in politics. What are these animals doing? Yeah. So that's, I guess, kind of what drew me in, and especially with ferrets, it's kind of funny, because being vegan and they are carnivores, I get the question a lot, but the difference is that I have the ability to make a choice to do less harm, and if you're vegan and you have carnivores, the most I can do is recommend that you try to find the most ethical places to buy this kind of food, but I'm not going to force a diet on them that would hurt them. I respect them for who they are, and I think that's a premise of veganism that a lot of people don't understand.
It's not a diet, it is a stance against animal abuse and doing everything possible, practical, and probable to live a life that doesn't harm, that doesn't contribute to harm directly or indirectly. So we want to help. This is what we is. You're doing your bit to help by doing what you're doing, and I appreciate you speaking up for the voiceless. So we're just about out of time. We have to wrap up. Is there any sort of final words or a final message you want to leave?
Yeah, I think that I used to be scared to get involved because I was nervous that I wasn't doing enough. So I actually didn't start sharing my rescue journey with people because I thought, you're a micro sanctuary. Like, you know, I'm not doing enough to be a sanctuary. But in recent times, I've been trying to be less hard on myself, and I encourage other people to not let that make them nervous or hesitant to do things. There are a million ways to get involved that aren't the typical cookie cutter adopting or fostering of any animal. There are a million ways that you can do, and just doing one thing. I mean, if you're a photographer and you can donate your time to take pictures, that's proven to help animals get homes. Like, just little things like that. Yeah. And so I encourage people to not think that's too small, that's not going to help, and then not do anything.
Something is always better than nothing. Everybody can use their natural talents or their natural inclinations or whatever is available to them to help, right? Because we're really all in it together, and the animals are oppressed in such astronomical numbers that they need all of us. So thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, Kelly, very much. Thank you. We're wrapping up another enlightening show. Join me in holding a clear vision of a world where animals of all species no longer need rescuing because they are never exploited, used, or harmed in the first place. That's the world I want to live in. Thank you for watching. Check out michellegranberg.com, go vegan, and join me next time on Positive Energy.